Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Kia ora, I'm Zoë George and welcome to the December episode of Fair Play, a podcast covering women in sport from athletes and results to current affairs and issues. This podcast is made in association with RNZ and wispsports.com. If you're into podcasts as much as we are, check out RNZ for politics, crime and lifestyle podcasts and wispsports.com for everything to do with women in sport. Month, we shine the spotlight on media coverage of women in sport following a new study out of Unitec. We visit the New Zealand Cricket Museum and look back on the highlights and lowlights of 2018. And of course, it's not fair play without an update on the toilets at the Basin Reserve. If you want to join the conversation, you can at RNZ, at Wisp Sports and at producer_Zoe. Today's guest co-host is a long-time sports journalist and founder of Locker Room, a dedicated women in sports news site, Suzanne McFadden. Kia ora.
Oh, kia ora, Zoe. Thank you so much for having me on your amazing podcast.
Oh, you're so kind. Now, I don't mean to fangirl you, but I'm totally going to fangirl you right now. It's women like you who have been, and I say this genuinely, a total inspiration for people like me who are trying to make their way in sports media.
Oh, thank you very much. It's I'm almost embarrassed to say it's been 30 years in this business, much of it in sports reporting. And I am so glad that I may inspire you and other women to report on sport, and especially women in sport.
What made you want to be a sports journalist?
It's a kind of ironic story, actually. My dad was a great sportsman. He played rugby for Northland, among other things, and he had two daughters, and I felt really sorry for him that he didn't have any sons to watch sport with. So from around the age of 8, I'd get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and watch the All Blacks play England or Ireland or France with my dad, and I think that's what kind of started me my real interest in passion for watching sport. And then my mum taught me how to write, and it just the two kind of came together. I mean, it was probably quite a crazy notion that a young girl wanted to be a sports reporter, but truly that's all I ever wanted to be.
I mean, what age did you know that that's what you wanted? Because I was quite young. I was about 12.
Yeah, I think around that age, and cricket became a great love of mine, as I know it became yours as well. And, I had scrapbooks of stories about the Black Caps, because, to be honest, there weren't many stories about the White Ferns then.
That's right.
So, I was fangirl of the Black Caps, and I would... in summer holidays, I'd sit inside and score, test matches, which is just bizarre, really, when I think about it now. But yeah, that's where my passion started.
I remember growing up and watching TV3 News, and there was this journalist on it called Di O'Connell, and
yes.
I saw her at a cricket game. It was actually a backyard cricket test that the Black Caps used to hold, and they held it at my grandparents' farm, and she was there recording it, and I went up to her. I was like 15, and I went up to her and I was like, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. And she thought that I was taking the mickey. And then next thing I know, she's tracking me down and inviting me to come and hang out at TV3. And so I spent my summers and weekends during my 7th form year hanging out with her, and it was amazing.
That is amazing. What an opportunity. But those are the kind of things that spark our careers, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. And it was like 17, 18 years ago now. But and we still stay in touch, which is incredible. And it's people like her and like you who've really set a benchmark for us and help us push through. What's been some of your highlights of your career to date?
I guess the biggest highlight is to be able to run Locker Room now. But before that, being able to cover sports like sailing and the America's Cup, that was an amazing experience to be there in 1995 when Team New Zealand won. I've been writing about netball for 30 years, even though I never played a game in my life.
Oh, wow.
But it was one of those things, that when I got a job in the Herald Sports Department, they said, you can cover netball. But I don't regret it. It's been a fantastic experience. Meeting people every day who inspire me with their stories. That's why I keep doing it.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced? And obviously the industry has changed a lot, particularly in the last few years. There's been this huge push for more coverage of women in sport, but you've been there for a long time, so you would have seen huge challenges.
Yeah, I have. And, it's really interesting that we talk about, and we hope that coverage of women's sport is improving. But I remember those early years at the Herald when on a Monday morning they would have, between 8 and 10 pages of sports news. And I was covering gymnastics and I was covering women's hockey and women's cycling. And, we got a lot of column inches for women's sport back then. Now, everything has reduced drastically, including the number of sports reporters. And I think that's the biggest challenge now is finding people to write about sport and the place. I mean, obviously the internet is fantastic. That's another great improvement that I've seen in that 3 decades. And so, I can write to my heart's content. But, yeah, it's just encouraging more women to become sports writers is the biggest challenge, I think, now.
Absolutely, and that's where the wonderful group is coming on board as well to support more women getting into sports journalism and the coverage of women in sport, which we're both a member of, which is great.
Yeah, fantastic.
Well, today's major topic is just that, coverage of women in sport in the media. Recently at the TP McLean Sports Awards, Sports Minister Grant Robertson threw down the gauntlet to the industry, still dominated by men. He said coverage of women and girls in sport has not been good enough and the industry needs to step it up. Organisations including the wonderful group that we've just mentioned and Women in Sport Aotearoa are leading the charge to change this, putting women and girls front and centre. Recently, research about the coverage of women on Sky Sport has been released. It was inspired by the work done by the wonderful group, which encourages more coverage of women both as journalists and those participating in sport. The research from Unitec in Auckland focused on the amount of coverage women received from August 2013 and August 2018 on Sky Sport, the major provider of sports coverage in New Zealand. It was conducted by Unitec senior sports lecturer Kylie Thompson with assistance from Jessica Harris and Karolina Hare. The results show coverage of women's only events increased from 6% in 2013 to 17% in 2018. The coverage of women's only live and primetime events increased from 3.4% to 9%. Regarding commentary teams, only 19% were women, with 24% of women's sports events having at least one male commentator and 95% of men's events having no female commentators. Only 8% of analytical guests for live and primetime events were women. Broadcasting teams at the women's events had, on average, 35% less personnel than men's events. Sky Sport has declined to comment on the research specifically, but have sent through a statement which we'll refer to during this discussion. Kylie Thompson, lead researcher from Unitec, is here to discuss the findings. Kia ora, Kylie.
Oh, kia ora. How are you?
Good. Now, what was the drive behind this research?
Well, I think most people are probably aware of this recent surge of interest in women's sport lately, but I guess we wanted to see if this had been reflected in the broadcasting. So, I mean, that was not just in terms of coverage time, but we wanted to look a little bit deeper and, have a look and see how visible women were within the broadcasting teams. So, I mean, that was in roles like commentators, presenters, sideline reporters and analytical guests.
Were there any surprising results from this?
Well, I have to say it didn't surprise us so much to find that there's still a big difference between how much coverage was devoted to men's sport versus women's sport in those 5 years. I think most people are aware that, that inequitable coverage is this ongoing issue that we're sort of always grappling with. However, I did think that the gap might have been a bit smaller. I mean, 11% increase, I thought maybe we could have gone a little bit higher. And I was surprised to see that despite, everything that's being done in women's sport today, it's still only made up, really kind of a pitiful 17% of the overall coverage time. And that dropped to, I think it was 9% when you just looked at live primetime coverage. Yeah. I think the other thing, that I found really interesting was the way that women were being included or probably more often the case not being included in the broadcasting teams. So, while they did make up, I think it was around 38% of the presenters and 46% of the sideline reporters for August, I mean, when it came to offering expert opinion in roles such as commentary or analytical guests, we saw those numbers drop dramatically. So, I think you said before, only 19% of the total number of commentators for the study were female, and only 8% of analytical guests were female.
Interestingly, Sky say in a statement, over the past year, we have used over 30 female presenters and commentators on our sports coverage. Compare that to MediaWorks, NZME, Radio New Zealand and Stuff. There is really no comparison. And Sky Sport is currently working to establish a pathway for the next generation of female broadcasters so they can gain the necessary experience required to develop into world-class commentators. Suzanne, do you think that this is good enough? I mean, it seems when you get a male commentator, they almost just get chucked in there, don't they?
Yeah, I have to say that I'm pleased to see Sky is making an effort, especially in developing women commentators and analysts, but it's still not good enough, is it? And that distinct lack of coverage in prime time of women's sports is pretty poor.
Does it also help as well with scheduling? I mean, let's face it, sometimes there's a White Ferns netball test on at the same time as the rugby when it's working together, isn't it? These sports getting together and going, actually, we've got the rugby and we've got the netball. How do we work together? Is that a way forward to get more women on primetime sports TV?
Yeah, I think Sky have the luxury, of course, of having a number of channels that they can use, but it's always, you'll find if there is a Silver Ferns test up against a rugby test, which doesn't happen very often because they try very hard for that reason not to do it. But, you'll always have the rugby on Sky Sport 1 and netball, you might find it on Sky Sport 3. But I don't know how you change that. I think it has to be done gradually, and I am glad to see that your studies, Kylie, have shown that it is on the improve. But I don't know what the answer is to pushing it further other than all of us just carrying on doing what we're doing.
The Sky Sport have said that they are producing and broadcasting more local women's sport than ever before. Sky has increased its coverage of women's rugby and cricket significantly, which is true. They're going to be broadcasting a lot of White Ferns over the summer, which will be spectacular. Their coverage of the under-17 women's FIFA World Cup was brilliant. The T20, World T20 that the White Ferns were involved in the West Indies was covered. They showed every game, so that was great. But at the same time, they were on a different channel to the All Blacks, and we had here in our newsroom, in our sports newsroom, had a very interesting discussion about the value of White Ferns and All Blacks, and you've got a team who's, we're talking about the All Blacks. They are they're a New Zealand brand, huge New Zealand brand, and they're getting all this coverage, which is great, and they're leading the news, and yet the White Ferns are playing in the World Cup. It's like, well, how do we balance this conversation? How do we prioritise our sports news?
Yeah, I think it's about making women also more aware that there is coverage of these sports. I think a lot of women just think that that's just not there, so they don't tune in to see it. So I think that may be able to bring more viewers in, which makes Sky say, oh, wow, women are interested in this. Because I think there might be still this feeling that, women aren't really interested in sport anyway.
I think another thing we found that was really interesting when we looked at this research was that that Sky definitely are making some really great steps in increasing coverage and doing a great job, as you say, of some of those events. But when we looked a little bit deeper, we also found some funny little trends, like when we recorded broadcasters at women's events, women's events were 90% more likely to have personnel in the broadcasting team who are performing, at least two different jobs at the same event. So they'd be presenting, and they'd rush off and they'd commentate, and they might even, race down and do some sideline interviewing. Yeah. And that was compared with, at men's events, only 34% of the personnel were carrying out multiple roles. So, broadcasters at men's events were much more able to give their full attention to that one role when it came to men's sports. And even the teams overall, the teams at women's events were 35% smaller than at men's, when you think of the presenter, the analytical guests, the sideline reporters and commentators. So, I think it's sometimes the little things like this that are not always obvious, but they actually have the potential, to create quite a different viewing experience when it comes to women's sport, if we're not giving that kind of equality when it comes to resourcing as well.
But I guess the attitudes need to change, Suzanne, about women's views in sport.
Yeah, absolutely, they do. And I think that with more television coverage of women's sport, we're going to create more women icons, more women heroes, role models that young women can relate to, and then hopefully those women go on to become commentators, and when they've got that kind of iconic status, more people listen to them. And I know that wonderful story that you broke about Debbie Hockley earlier this year, and to me she is a legend, but she, and to cricket followers she is, but the rest of New Zealand don't know a lot about Debbie Hockley. So it's about creating these role models that more people, men and women, can relate to.
Locker Room, Suzanne McFadden and Kylie Thompson, who is the senior lecturer at Unitec. We're talking about their new research into women's sports coverage on Sky Sport. Interesting question that I have is whether there's been any research done into pay equity when it comes to commentary, because if the men are just sitting in the commentary box commentating and the women are off commentating and interviewing and doing everything else, should they not actually be paid more since they're doing more?
It's a great question. I don't know about that. I'm not aware of any research on that. I guess pay is always quite a difficult thing to research, isn't it? People are not always, that keen to reveal it. But it would definitely be an interesting question to look into.
Yeah, the trouble is that we're multitaskers, so,
We can't help it.
No, that's right. We're doing ourselves no favours.
All right, so Kylie, what are your recommendations then following this research, which I understand was given to the wonderful group, and did you present it to the Olympic Committee as well? Is that correct?
Yeah, we did, So we've presented to them. We've also shared the results with Women in Sport Aotearoa and Sport New Zealand. So we're trying to get it, the message out there as much as possible. I mean, I think it's an interesting discussion, isn't it? I think a lot of people are still settling for that old argument that, what we show is because it's audience-driven and that broadcasters cover mostly men's sport because that's all they think their audience want. And I think, Suzanne makes a really good point that we need to really build that viewer product. And I don't think it's as simple as that argument that people make about it being audience-driven. I think that, research like this forces us to focus on, how can broadcasters be actively building audiences for men's sport while they're marginalising women's sport, essentially. In terms of recommendations, I think to start with, we could be proactively mentoring and training more female commentators, which I think you've talked about, and analytical guests into sports broadcasting roles. And that's probably not just at women's sport, but I think also at men's sport is really important too. I know that, some portions of the audience haven't been that keen to hear a woman at men's games, and in fact some of the reactions sometimes has been quite vile from what I've heard.
Oh, very.
Yeah, but I think, the more that we expose audiences to women in broadcasting teams, so not just playing and increasing coverage, but overall, the more we're going to come to expect that and enjoy it when we get a really good product to view as well. So I think those roles need to be not just for presenting and interviewing too. I think we need to be calling for women to be, expected to give their opinion on expert roles such as commentary and analytical guests. In terms of coverage, I think we still need to be advocating for broadcasters to set these targets and progress indicators. But I think you're right. We need to be also looking at the scheduling of women's sport during primetime slots. And then, even bigger picture, it comes back to that argument of, more women in corporate decision-making positions and on boards is going to go a really long way towards advocating for this change, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And, with more female sports journalists standing up and going, actually, we want to cover this as well, it's making a huge difference.
Yes, yeah.
Kylie Thompson from Unitec, thank you so much for your time to talk about the research. We look forward to seeing what else comes out of this, and I will definitely be in touch again in the new year.
Fantastic. Thanks for the chat.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
Very very interesting discussion there from Kylie Thompson. Let's move on to one of my favourite topics now, Suzanne. Cricket.
You and me both.
Oh, I love it. For those who followed Not Your Average Cricket Show on RNZ, you would have heard a collection of interviews about the interesting memorabilia at the New Zealand Cricket Museum at the Basin Reserve. Former White Ferns captain Trish McFadden took me behind the scenes to show what women wore in the early days. Hi Trish, we're here at the New Zealand Cricket Museum and we're looking at a set of culottes. Now it's kind of like a skirt but shorts, almost like a skirt, and women used to play in these.
Right through my time of playing, that was our playing uniform with long three-quarter socks. When this young New Zealand team was chosen to go to Britain for a tour to England in 1966, we actually had to make our own uniform. After the team was announced, about a fortnight later, a bolt of material and a dress pattern. And inside the dress pattern was a voucher to go to Hannah's for a particular style of shoes, which we had to buy. And we had to find our own dressmakers to make our walking out uniform, so to speak. And of course, then in those days, we wore hats and gloves as well. After all, we were going to the British Isles.
My goodness. You wouldn't get that these days. Can you just imagine asking the White Ferns to sew their uniforms or to find a dressmaker to make it for them?
No, because I think they're too busy playing cricket.
I mean, the men wouldn't have made their own uniforms.
No.
Why do you think it was that way?
Well, we had to provide all our own gear, whether it was playing or travelling gear.
How difficult was it to play in something like culottes?
Well, we didn't actually find it difficult. Yeah. We felt really proud of ourselves and where we'd got to, and that was what the playing uniform was. We had to provide our own culottes, and so that's what we wore.
Would you get injuries wearing things like this?
Well, I do remember going into a changing room at one stage when the younger women were still wearing culottes. And they're all sitting there. I was managing the team, and they're all sitting there rubbing Vaseline on their knees. And I said, what on earth are you doing that for? It was a scorching hot day up in Palmerston North, blowing a gale, and when you play cricket in that sort of atmosphere, it is very, very tiring, to say the least. But the girls said to me that they put the Vaseline on so that if they dive to stop the ball or field the ball, then they won't get a grass burn.
Former White Fern captain Trish McFadden. Suzanne, she was saying the women sewed their own uniforms. Can you imagine the team doing that now?
No, I can't. I'm not even sure if our generation or that generation know what
how
a
to
needle
sew.
is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was incredible when she pulled out the culottes. And I tell you what, it's so fashionable. They had culottes and blazers and hats and gloves, and it was so stylish. And I would actually wear, if it was in black or maybe a nice cobalt blue, I would actually wear it in my everyday life.
Yeah.
One of the other items that we profiled was former black cap fast bowler Chris Martin's batting pads.
Wow.
And I actually caught up with him on the weekend at the test between New Zealand and Sri Lanka, and we had a really good chat about it. And then he went to the museum and had a look and stuff, and he just thought it was hilarious that we had that. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure your pads actually got more action than your bat. And he's like, yeah, they did.
No wonder they were so coveted.
Yeah, I know. It was fantastic. I mean, what do you think should be in the museum? I mean, we've got a few. There's a whole lot of stuff there from women's cricket, but do you think there's something else that should be in there?
I'd love to see Emily Drum's big wide-brimmed hat that
Yes.
she always wore. I think
Iconic.
that was very iconic. And more recently, I want to see Amelia Kerr's bat from her double century.
Yes.
When she's finished using it, of course.
Of
I think.
course.
Yeah, she's still using it, hopefully.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, you don't give up a good thing, do you? You know,
No.
when you score lots of runs, you just keep using it. Let's move on to the highlights. It's been quite a year for women in sport. There's been a number of highlights and lowlights. Let's start with pay equity. This has been a good thing, right?
Absolutely. I think we're on the right track.
Yeah, and it's New Zealand football who's leading the charge with this, in particular, offering a pay equality with men and women. But we could argue that the women are actually more successful than the men, though, right?
Yeah. Good luck with that, Zoe.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fantastic that they're world leading in this and setting an example not only for football but for other sports. And we're starting to see them follow.
We've also had the Rugby World Cup being announced that's coming to New Zealand. This is a bit of a coup, isn't it?
Oh, fantastic. I mean, the fact that it's never been held here before is amazing. And there's incredible dearth of tests played by the Black Ferns in New Zealand. So this is going to be massive.
It's actually going to be in the same year as the Women's Cricket World Cup as well. So that it's going to be fantastic.
Oh, there's so much incredible sport coming to New Zealand in the next 4 years.
Yeah. And
we're really lucky.
And I think a lot of it is actually coming from, for those who do listen to Not Your Average Cricket Show, we had Minister Grant Robertson on and he was explaining about how the government is really keen to push promotion of girls and women in sport, like he did at the TP McLean Awards a couple of weeks ago, which I know that you weren't at, Suzanne, but was fascinating, particularly around the introduction of this new award to recognise coverage of women in sport. And I was kind of in two minds about it because, do we actually need an award to recognise coverage of women in sport? Should it just not be coverage of sport?
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, when do you have a coverage of men's sport award? So, yeah, it's a little bit. But, I mean, at least it is an acknowledgement that it's an area that is growing and improving. And, it's there also to encourage more coverage of women's sport. And we're seeing it. We're definitely seeing it. But still got a long way to go.
Yeah, it was. I was so fortunate to be a finalist in that category. But when I found out that you weren't in it, Suzanne, I actually wasn't going to apply because I put my application in because I thought that you'd win it. So I was like, oh, well, what's the point? You're going to win it. So I just won't do it. And when I found out that you went in, I was speaking to a couple of people and I was like, actually, can you just not take my name out and put her name in? Because she is way more deserving of it than I am.
No.
Yes, absolutely.
No, I was thrilled to see your name there. I think it's well deserved.
Thanks. It was really fascinating though because there were a number of people, men, at the awards who rolled their eyes while the minister was speaking, and there was one particular guy at my table who talked over the minister's speech, and in the afterwards I kind of pulled him aside and I was like, do you mind not saying that, in a very polite way, but there's obviously still this pushback against it.
There is, and I still feel it. It's within the industry, I think. That some people may think that locker room is not a joke, but why do we need to have it? But we're not really. I mean, it's not there to make a statement. It's there to cover women in sport. Where newsroom we saw a gap in the media landscape that we knew that we could fill, and we're really there just to show that women are doing it. And it's. I hope that people take it seriously. I mean, we've had really good feedback. It's been fantastic, and we just keep going, I think.
And the way that you cover stories, it's a lot like what we do here at Fair Play. It's a lot of, yes, it's results driven, but there's also issues-based discussions, which actually sport is a microcosm of society. So that's, it's important that we're covering those issues. Speaking of issues, the Silver Ferns this year, do we even want to talk about it? I mean, I feel really sorry for Katrina Katrina Grant, as we know her as. She got married recently. Congratulations to her. But, she's had a bit of a rough year. They've had, changes in their captaining and their coaching. It's just been all over the show. Yeah,
I think that the good thing about Katrina is that she is driven and she will take this, being left out of the Silver Ferns team to go to the Northern Quad Series next month. She will take it as a challenge to get better. She's an incredible athlete. But as she says, she's not a natural. She has to work on it, and by God, she works on it. I don't think that there's any player who works as hard in the gym as she does. And maybe, I think that she will look at this like, okay, I'm going to take a break, but I'm going to work like hell to get back in that team. And that's what we want. That is exactly what Noeline Taurua wants from her players, that they really have to be passionate about this. The time is against them. The World Cup is in July and she's trying to rebuild this team with the very best players that she can. It's been a really, really hard year for netball fans, and but I think the great thing is that they've remained loyal. The games that were played here towards the end of the season, people still showed up. Some of them were sellouts. So
that's brilliant.
I think it's about being loyal to these guys, believing in them. They're not the worst team in the world, and they're playing. The other thing is these other countries, we want them to be strong. We want them to be competitive with us. So, it should bring out the best in our Silver Ferns.
Suzanne McFadden from Locker Room is my co-host today. Under 17 football Ferns is probably my highlight of the year.
Oh, absolutely. What a fantastic team. And I love the fact that, they weren't a group of girls who were just kind of stuck together and sent off, to the other side of the globe. Some of them have played together in the football Ferns, in the under-20s. And so they seem to have, not throwers there, but from what you could gather from it, that they seem to have an incredible camaraderie and a credible team spirit. And as we know, that goes such a long way in making a great team.
Absolutely. They are the most successful football team that we've had, coming third in the Under-17 Football World Cup last month. If they don't make it to Team of the Year for the Hellbergs, something's wrong. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but we know what judges are like. So, but I think they will definitely be right up there for Team of the Year.
No, I completely agree. There's been also a few highlights from Fair Play. We talked about it very briefly earlier. The Debbie Hockley story was one of the most engaged with and listened to podcasts of the year. So thank you so much for engaging with that. I'm actually really looking forward to hearing Debbie in the commentary box again this summer. But it was that story was just, it was a reflection of what some of the views are about women in sport and the commentary. But then the way that Sky Sport dealt with it and the way that the conversation that came out of it was fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it needed to happen. I mean, not Debbie
Debbie
receiving death threats and things like that.
Terrible.
But that discussion needed to happen. And congratulations to you for highlighting it, bringing it out there. I think it was something that really had to be put out there and shown. Hopefully, those people are a very small percentage of the population, but they have very loud voices, unfortunately.
Yes. Well, ours can be louder. Another highlight for me was getting Wellington Rugby to change their junior rugby forms. Now, I don't know if you know this story, Suzanne, but they had a rugby dispensation form that put female player in the same category as physical and developmental conditions.
You're kidding.
We had Disability Rights Commissioner Paula Tesoriero come in to talk about why being a female is not a disability. And the Wellington Rugby Football Union didn't take me seriously to start with, but the New Zealand Rugby Union did, and they were able to pull that form, which was a great change. And then I think as well, another highlight for me was the coverage of why the government's money shouldn't fund All Blacks pay packets with Lewis Wall. That was huge. And I think it's true. Why should they have to pay the Black Caps, All Blacks pay packets? Why should they boost it when we're trying to grow women in sport and the coverage of that? Yeah,
I think it's amazing having Lewis there as an incredible leader in women's sport, and Grant Robertson too.
He is a wonderful advocate for
Man of the Year.
And speaking of Larissa, she was actually on last month's episode of Fair Play. And this is the section most of us have been waiting for, the updates for the toilets at the Basin Reserve. So last issue, she came on along with Disability Rights Commissioner Paula Tesoriero and Wellington City Councillor Fleur Fitzsimons to discuss the sticky situation at the Basin. Now, Fitzsimons says the council is boosting the number of toilets at the ground from 37 to 57, with 8 combined gender-neutral and disability toilets. But Paula Tesoriero says doing that is not proper practice, and it's because this actually makes toilets less quickly accessible to those with disabilities. The Ministry of Business and Innovation Toilet Code, which is my go-to at the moment, Code of Compliance calculator, suggests about 100 toilets is required for the number for the basin's capacity of 6,000. But the council says we here at Fair Play have it wrong. We've asked a number of times regarding the council's workings regarding this and have asked for clarification. We continue to invite the Wellington City Council and the Basin Reserve Trust onto the show. But we have had a statement provided to us by Richard McLean from Wellington City Council. Now, he says that toilet calculator that I'm referencing is not suitable in any way whatsoever because it would require the basin to build a very large number of permanent toilets that would be unused and unnecessary for all but a few days a year. In planning for the provisions of toilets in the Basin Reserve, their consultants used a range of referencing material, including the MBE Guide of Acceptable Solutions and Verification Methods for New Zealand Building Code Clause G1 Personal Hygiene, and the Purple Guide, which is to health and safety and welfare at music and other events, which is based in the UK. Purple Guide's actually been used by a number of other, like Tauranga City Council and that type of thing as well. Now, they said because the Basin Reserve caters for a wide range of events and event sizes, they will have a core level of permanent toilets that enable it to deal with the majority of events, but will ship in toilets, which they actually did on the weekend for the test. And actually, they were quite nice. I mean, I'll give them that much. Regarding the disability toilets, they said the planned disability toilets are designed in accordance with Design and Accessibility and Mobility Building and Associated Facilities codes. This is accepted and in fact required standard for the construction of any new disability toilets. And when I asked more about consultation, he says that the Basin Reserve Master Plan has been publicly consulted on a wide range of engagements with stakeholders which has been undertaken. But as there's been a number of changes made to the Master Plan, is it time for more consultation, do we think, Suzanne?
I think the whole thing stinks. Sorry.
It does.
Yes. Literally.
It stinks. It stinks.
Yeah. Gosh, something as basic as the toilet needs of the public not being met properly. Gosh, it's, I think this has got to go one step further. I think you need to get some ministers involved.
Well, I did ask the minister about it. I was actually at the game, like I said earlier, between the Black Caps and Sri Lanka on Saturday, and I had a look around the different toilet blocks. The access to general toilet facilities included two toilets at the northeastern end of the ground on the embankment and 3 toilets at the southern part of the ground, and the toilet truck, which contains 6 toilets acceptable for women. But there were also some safety issues, and hopefully that's something that they can look at until they upgrade these particular toilets, including locks being broken on toilet doors. That does pose a safety issue. The access for the disability toilets at the southern end was also difficult as it's located in very tight proximity to the women's toilets. And even though we've been talking a lot around disability toilets, women's toilets and gender-neutral toilets, men have now also joined the conversation. I actually spoke to a few men about the state of their toilets. One said it smelt like something had died in there, and another said, and I quote, "I chose not to wash my hands. I'm 90% sure my penis is cleaner than their sinks."
That is classic.
So there you go. That's the latest on that topic.
Don't give in on this, Zoe. Keep fighting the good fight.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a really important issue. And to make sport accessible to all people, we need to have proper facilities.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm going to a sports event now, it's like parking and now maybe toilets is going to be just as critical, and especially for, if you're going there for a cricket match, it's not like you're there for a short time.
No, exactly. It's a long day. It's a long day.
And, you drink to keep hydrated and you need these toilets.
Well, see, and parking is also an issue. A friend of mine biked to the ground and, we were encouraged in Wellington to use public transport or bike, and yet there was no bike parking.
Oh, that's terrible.
So maybe they might want to look at that for the next games at the Basin Reserve. I'm just saying. And that's it for this episode of Fair Play. A big thank you to Kylie Thompson, Trish McKelvey, and of course my multi-talented guest co-host, Suzanne McFadden. We'd really love for you to come back and co-host next year. Would you come back?
Oh, absolutely.
Nice.
Oh, you don't even have to ask me. I'm just going to turn up.
Sounds good to me. What are you doing over the summer before you go?
I'm going to go fishing and
lovely.
I'm going to go to the beach and play some beach cricket and swim and just quality family time. And watch some sport.
Of course.
How can you
There's
not?
a whole lot of cricket going on, so that's pretty much what I'll be doing, is just watching cricket.
Happy holidays from Wisps for
This is actually the last episode for the year. We'll be back in January. But if you find yourself missing us, you can find all the seasons at rnz.co.nz/series and at wispsports.com. And that's it for 2018. I'd like to thank all my amazing co-hosts and guests throughout the year, the support of wispsports.com and RNZ, and a special thanks to intern Stephanie Harris, who's sitting behind the glass today, and Phil, who's making us sound fabulous. But most of all, thank you to you for your support. I genuinely couldn't have done it without you listening and engaging with Fair Play. I really appreciate it. I'm Zoë George. Don't forget to play hard, but play fair.